Alright, hi Instagram, hi Zoom, and yeah, hi anybody watching this later. This is our first Yamas class, talking about the first limb of yoga. And I'm going to give it a minute and see who joined. Hi Megan, hi Nick. Awesome. So just give it a minute, see who wants, aloha Megan, seeing who wants to come in. Tonight is our first class on the Yamas, which is the first limb of yoga. Hi Nick, I'm really happy that you're here. I was listening to one of your songs yesterday and it was making me happy. I don't remember which one, but yay. So I'm excited about this class because as many of you realize, but as some of you may not, yoga is about more than just poses. And that's really my favorite stuff to teach and to talk about, is the stuff that isn't the poses. I do love the poses too, don't get me wrong. But I think the real magic is in yoga philosophy and that kind of stuff. So I'm excited for this class because it really is, it's great to see you too, Nick. It really is so fun just to get to talk about the philosophy. And I think that's so needed in this time right now. The more we can get in touch with this yoga wisdom, which really is just a wisdom, like, you know, it's ways to be in the world, and that's really what the Yamas are about. I like to call them how to treat the world and everyone in it. And so I'm really excited for this class to start. I realize as we're starting that I usually have my dog take a little break in his crate while I teach, but he's outside the door. So we're gonna see if he can be cool so he doesn't go in his crate. Not that he minds, because he learned that his crate was his happy place when he was little, so he goes in there without me even telling him, but usually I tell him to go in there. So we'll see what he does outside the door while we go through this class. So this class is going to be a little unconventional for a regular yoga class, and as I was saying, I'm excited because it's about more than just the poses. We are going to talk a bit about the first limb of yoga, and then about the first piece of the first limb, because there's 5 aspects to it. And then I'm going to have us do a really short physical practice if we want to, or if you want to, and you don't have to. But it's really cool to feel the same things in your body that we're talking about on a more esoteric level. And it's really neat because we can find those things in our body all the time that match up with the philosophy. So I'm kind of rambling on a bit just to see if a couple more people come in that I believed were coming. But if they don't make it, or if they come in late, that's totally okay too. And this is getting recorded, so hi Dale. This is getting recorded, so you know, everyone can watch it later if you want to. So yeah. Before we start into our discussion, let's just go ahead and do like I always do at the beginning of every class, no matter what we're doing. And I will tell you, I should say before we do that, you can sit however you feel comfortable for this class. I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor and I'm close to you because I want to be able to interact with everybody in this class. When we do our yoga practice, little short practice, I'll go back on my mat and then I won't be able to see who's interacting. But you can sit on the floor, but for a lot of us it's really uncomfortable sitting on the floor. I actually don't love sitting cross-legged on the floor, or at least I didn't used to. But if you're sitting on the floor and it's uncomfortable and you're having trouble keeping your back long and you're feeling like you're slumping or your hips are feeling yucky, you can sit on something. I'm sitting on a yoga block. You can sit up on a bolster or a pillow, and that really helps so you feel a little more comfortable sitting on the floor. But you're welcome to be in a chair for this class. Like, you don't have to sit on the floor for this one. As I said, we're going to have discussion. We're going to do some optional, really quick feeling in our body, just with a few poses, nothing complicated or even advanced, simple stuff, just feeling some alignments and things. And then we're going to have a meditation. So make sure you've got a place where you can sit and be comfortable sitting. That way you feel good while we're discussing, and then also for the meditation. So as we said, this is the first class of our discussion on the first limb of yoga. And this course, this little ongoing class, is going to be 5 weeks long because there's 5 parts to the first limb of yoga. So I like to call the first limb of yoga, which in Sanskrit is called the Yamas, I like to call it how to treat the world and everyone in it. And so these are just ways for you to be in the world, ways for you to act in the world that really help the world out, but they also help you out too, and that's really, really important. And I think during this crazy time, what a better time to talk about this stuff, right? How should we act in the world when all this craziness is going on and when all this craziness is over? So, as I said, there's 5 parts to the first limb of yoga, and the first part is called Ahimsa. And Ahimsa is a Sanskrit word that is often translated a certain way, but I like to translate it as loving kindness. It's often translated as non-violence. And in my lineage of yoga, we like to take everything and give them more positive words. So rather than non-something, we want it to be a positive thing. So we always use loving kindness, but it can also be translated as non-violence. And I love that this is the first part of the first limb of yoga, because what that says to us is that above all else, before you do anything else in the world, make sure you're acting with kindness. Make sure you're showing love. Make sure you're not hurting anyone or anything. And that's so important right now as we're going through this crisis. How can we show loving kindness to each other? And, you know, it really is by doing all these things we're being asked to do, staying home, social distancing or physical distancing. We don't need to be socially distant, but keeping space between us, making sure we're washing our hands, being conscious of those around us that are more vulnerable. And then we can take it even further, seeing if we can help anyone. You know, if we have some neighbors that might be older, seeing if they need help. If we have friends who might be immune compromised, seeing if we can do a store run for them or something like that. So it's a great time to practice loving kindness, especially for others. But it's also really important to show that loving kindness to yourself, that ahimsa for yourself. And I usually end up teaching almost more about showing yourself the loving kindness, because it's easy for us to see, especially as yogis, we're already here in a yoga kind of setting. It's easy for us to see, like, oh, we should be nice to each other. But oftentimes we're really hard on ourselves, or we're not taking care of ourselves at the expense of taking care of others. And it's so important that we do show ourselves that loving kindness first, so that we're better able to show loving kindness to the rest of the world. So, you know, I like to say the Yamas are how to treat the world and everyone in it, and by extension, you are one of the people in the world. So it really is how to treat yourself too. It's so important to remember that, and so important to really get our head around that and understand what that means. Beautiful, we got a few more people joining, I love it. So showing ourselves the loving kindness first before we help others. Really, we've all, I think, we've all been, I imagine, we've all been on an airplane, and we may have even heard this said before in self-care or yoga circles. But it's that same idea of you've got to put your oxygen mask on first so that you can assist the person next to you, your child or somebody who needs assistance. Because if you don't put your mask on first and you're trying to assist them and you run out of air and then you collapse and then you can't help them at all, right? You can't show them loving kindness at all. So you've got to find it in yourself, and you've got to show it to yourself first before you can send it outward to the world. So two main things I wanted to go over tonight, and that was 1, loving kindness always comes first, and 2, you've got to show that loving kindness to yourself. And so maybe we'll say, always lead with your heart and show yourself loving kindness, or be strong in yourself first. And so I'm going to go to my mat. You can follow along with me. It's not going to be like a whole big yoga practice thing. It's just a couple little things for you to think about. And if you do have a regular physical yoga practice, then I want you to take these things that we're learning in this class and take them into your practice and let them be there in your mind and in your body while you go through the rest of your practice. So even though we're not doing a whole big flow or a big practice here together in this class, use these things that we're talking about in your regular practice, in your class with another teacher, in your regular practice at home, or in another class with me, of course. So I'm going to go to my mat. I won't be able to see if anybody says anything or anybody's around, so until I come back, of course. But just know that. But you can join in with me and do the physical practice, or if you want to just sit and listen to what I'm saying while I'm moving around and doing the practice, that's totally fine too. Like, you don't have to do the physical part of it tonight, but I encourage you to if you would like. So, if you've got a mat, you can come on your mat. If not, you can just find some space. And I'm going to be talking about two things. So, we're going to do them in the other order. So we said, always lead with your heart. That's going to be step 2 for the physical practice. And then show yourself the loving kindness first. And one of the ways I think that we can show ourselves loving kindness the most, off the mat and on the mat, is to be strong in the core of who we are. Usually when we're not showing ourselves loving kindness, we're getting distracted from what really matters to us, what's really there in our heart, and who we really are. And so we're going to think about activating our core first and foremost, no matter what. And we're going to talk about back bending today, and then we're going to talk about forward folding. So just standing up, I want us just to feel this. Stand nice and tall. Let your legs be really strong. And maybe I will turn to the side. I thought about it and I changed my mind, and now I changed my mind back. So let your thighs be really strong. And I want you just to feel them trying to move back. Almost like you're trying to stick your butt out like a duck. But we're not going to be ducks. So the thighs go back. And then you're going to counter that. Keep the thighs back. Counter it by hooking the tailbone and drawing the belly button in. And so by hooking the tailbone, you hear that a lot in yoga class, and people tuck their pelvis under. That's not what we're wanting. And so we have to have these two things going on. The thighs back, the tailbone hooks. That really activates your core. The other thing that you can think about is your pelvic floor muscles lifting. And if we're women, we can say just like doing a Kegel. If you're a guy, you can imagine like if you were peeing and you tried to stop the muscles that you'd have to use to do that. So feel those muscles engage, and there's our core. All right? And then let all that go and kind of relax for a moment. I'm going to try just a little standing back bend. Don't do the core thing that we just did. Just be here for a second. Lift your arms up overhead, just kind of willy-nilly, and start to lean back and see what happens. You don't have to go super far. Just lean back and see what happens. Take a breath, and then stand all the way back up. So, what I imagine that you felt, unless you've just done a bunch of yoga and your body's like, no, I'm not going to do that, is when you go to bend backwards without engaging your core, you can feel it in your lower back. Your lower back starts to take the back bend, and it gets crunchy really kind of quick, right? Your lower back's like, oh, I can feel that. So now we'll do the opposite. Take the thighs back, hook the tailbone, get the core engaged first. We're going to keep all this going on, and then reach the arms up overhead. And now when you try to do your back bend, don't change anything about the core, and see what wants to happen. Now I imagine, take a couple breaths, that this one is feeling a lot different, and I hope you can see it in me rather than dumping into my lower back. Now I'm getting this bend that hopefully, I think and feel, is going through more of my whole back and even getting at what we're trying to do most of the time in yoga, opening up and getting the bend into our upper back. So you can go ahead and lower the arms down. So as we did that, we've got the core, we've got the back bend starting to come into our upper back, and I think you can feel when that happens, it really is more opening your heart, and so we're leading with our heart. So I'm going to flow down to the ground. You can follow along with me. You can just get down on the ground if you don't want to do a little flow. So inhale, arms to the sky. If you're flowing, keep the core engaged. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale about halfway up, make a nice flat back. Let your heart shine forward. Exhale, fold and walk your hands back. Plank pose. And we're going to make our way all the way down to the ground for cobra pose. So So cobra pose is a little back bend. We're here on the floor. As you're here, let the shoulders lift rather than dumping them down towards the ground. I call these our grasshopper arms. This is where we want to start our cobra from. But even here, this first part, don't go too far, but I want you to feel it. Without doing anything with your core, just lift up a little bit and see if you can feel your low back getting crunchy. If you want to go a little further, you can feel it. Don't hurt yourself though, because this is not what we want to do. And then go ahead, lower down, and we'll do the same thing we did standing up, where we engage the legs, hook the tailbone. When we're on the ground, I like to tell my students, it's not going to work because you're flat on the floor, but try to lift your belly button up off of the ground. So you're hugging your belly button to your spine, and then lift up into your cobra, and really try to lead forward with your heart. So your heart is trying to pull towards the front of your back. And you can see I'm not up as high as I was, but I've got a more even arch in my back. And then we'll go ahead and lower down and tuck the toes. And your choice, you can come up to all fours, you can go downward dog, or you can do neither. You can decide. I'm going to take a breath in my downward dog. And then come on down to all fours and swing the legs around in the front. So, sitting with both legs reaching out, we just did two little back bends, not huge ones, but now we're going to counter pose and fold forward. So, you can root your sit bones down, just move the meaty part of your leg out from underneath your sit bones so your sit bones can connect to the floor. I'm sideways for this one on purpose because I want you guys to see. So, we're not going to twist tonight, but we're folding forward and backward bending and twisting normally are the three ways that our spine moves, right? The three ways that we kind of move in the world, right? Going forward, going backwards, turning sideways. And all of those three ways, I like to say, lead with your heart, right? Engage the core first, show yourself that loving kindness, and then lead with your heart. So as you're here, folding forward, we don't think as much about the core engagement, but leading with the heart becomes really, really important. So I did gymnastics for 14 years as a kid, and I could never lay all the way down on my legs, and part of the reason why was because I always tried to lead with my head, and I tried to bring my head down. And all that does is just round your back, and your back can only round so far. So when you're working on your forward folds, think, leading with my heart. We'll inhale, reach the arms up, and that helps us keep our spine long as we lead with the heart. We don't bring the head down, and then bring the arms down. So still heart leading, folding forward. Someday when you're laying down on your legs, then you can bring your head down. But until then, keep leading with the heart. Leading with the heart is one of my most favorite yoga metaphors that I teach. How I say, lead with the heart, the head can get on board later. And it's such a great way to be in our practice, but also such a great way to be in the world. So just be here, take a couple breaths, just that little counter pose to our back bend. So however you want to sit for our meditation, I'm going to move back closer so I can see everyone. Beautiful. All right. So again, going over the first aspect of the first limb of yoga tonight, Ahimsa, this loving kindness, talking about making sure we're showing ourselves loving kindness first, and then always leading with the heart as we go out into the world, showing loving kindness to the world around us. So I want to take a few minutes and we'll go through one of my favorite meditations, and I think it's going to be a great one for just this time here in the world. So being able to send loving kindness out into the world, but also remembering that that loving kindness is always there for ourselves as well, and that is one of the most important aspects of it. So, if you've never meditated with me before, I'm going to lead you through the whole thing. Don't worry, you don't have to have any meditation experience to meditate tonight, and hopefully it will be fun. If you missed the beginning of the class, know that it's recorded, and you can go back and listen. We had a discussion about the first piece of the first limb of yoga, which is Ahimsa, or loving kindness. Did a little bit of physical poses, more so just informing our practice as to things that we can keep in mind when we go to our mat regularly, things that we can incorporate into our practice. And those things really help to show us that ahimsa, to keep our physical body safe as we go through our physical practice. But then when we keep those things in mind as we go out into the world, then that helps to keep us safe as well, because when we make sure that we're strong in our own core and giving ourselves that loving kindness, it's easier for us not to get hurt as we're going through the world, whether that's on our mat or off our mat. All right, let's go ahead. However you're sitting, and again, you don't have to be sitting cross-legged on the floor, you can sit in a chair. The most important thing is that you're sitting with your spine nice and long and you can breathe freely. If you're in a chair, I suggest sit forward so your feet can be nice and flat on the ground and you're not leaning back against the back of the chair. So you're kind of holding yourself up, keeping your spine long. In longer meditations, that helps so you don't fall asleep. But also mostly it just helps so that we can breathe freely as we're meditating. So go ahead, let your hands rest on your knees or your thighs, whatever feels good. And if you feel okay with it, you can close your eyes. If you want to keep your eyes open, that's always okay too. But as you close your eyes, just take a nice, easy inhale and a nice, easy exhale. Let your awareness settle there onto your breath. Let your breath grow a little longer and a little deeper. And just noticing your inhale flowing in. Noticing your exhale flowing out. You might feel how your body feels as the air moves in. Your chest expanding, your side ribs expanding, your stomach expanding. And then as it flows out, your stomach drawing back in, side ribs drawing back in, chest drawing back in. As you inhale, you might feel that rising feeling with the crown of your head reaching up to the sky, your spine getting longer. As you exhale, maybe your shoulders soften a little bit more. And just finding the breath for a few moments. So if you've practiced with me for very long, you've done this meditation before, but I always love doing it. So as you're here and you're breathing, I'd like for you to use your imagination, and we use our imagination a lot when we're meditating. Use your imagination, and rather than feeling the air flowing in and out of your nose, I'd like for you to feel as though you can breathe directly in and out through the space of your heart. And in yoga, we call the center of our chest our heart space. Don't get too medically smart with me and think that it's a little to the left, because we know our heart's a little to the left, but our energetic heart space right in the center of your chest. As you inhale, I want you to feel like you're drawing the air in through the center of your chest. As you exhale, I want you to feel like the air is flowing out through the center of your chest. And take a couple moments and get your head around that, because as you inhale, your chest actually expands outward. So the chest is expanding outward, but you want to feel the energy drawing inward. And then as you exhale, your chest draws inward and you want to feel the air moving outward. So just feel that for a moment. As you inhale, it draws into the center of your chest. As you exhale, it flows out through the center of your chest. And you'll notice, maybe you'll noticed that a moment ago when I was describing it flowing in and out, I said energy instead of air. And that's for good reason, because that's what I want you to really think about. In yoga, we do pranayama, which is breath work, but it really is life force energy work. And so our energy, our life force flows with our breath. So this really is about our energy flowing out with the exhale and energy flowing in with the inhale. And then if you're comfortable with that, you can take that a step further, and instead of the word energy, you can think the word love. So as you inhale, you're drawing love in. As you exhale, you're sending love out. And you might see why I thought this was a great meditation to do right now, while we're all so isolated. Just sending love out into the world, and then knowing that you can draw it back into yourself. But we're going to go a bit further with this, because I want it to be a really specific imagination and a really specific thing that we're going to do, because when we can get specific, things get like quite powerful. So as you're feeling this, and I hope I've given you time to get your head around the oppositeness of the physical body going out, the energy drawing in. As you're feeling this, I want you to think about and just imagine that this love, this energy, is a little force field, like a little bubble. And so as you exhale, that little bubble comes out from the center of your chest, maybe an inch or so. And then as you inhale, it draws back in. And you can think of it coming all the way back in, or you can think of it kind of like pulsing. Right? So as you exhale, that little energy bubble goes out, and then it draws back in. And just play with that. Imagine you've got this little force field coming out from the center of your chest, and drawing back in with each breath. And then you can take this as far as you want. So stop wherever it makes most sense for you. Some of us get more expansive. Some of us want to stay a little closer to ourselves. But maybe that little force field is about an inch. Maybe on the next exhale it gets a few more inches. And then draw back in however it wants to pulse back in. And with every breath, just send it out, if you're comfortable with it, send it out a little further. And let it pulse back in. And a little further. And back in. And this force field might now start to get big enough that it makes a whole little bubble all the way around you. And if you want to keep going, that bubble can get even bigger. It might start to fill up the room around you. And it might start to get a little bit bigger. It might start to encompass your whole house or wherever you live. And then you can play with it as much as you want. So your energy force field, your love force field might go out and encompass your house. It might start to encompass your neighbors. It could start to encompass your whole city or your neighborhood. And you can let it get as big as you want. But I encourage you to go slowly. Don't just jump out to the whole universe first. Take it a step at a time, through neighborhood, through city, through your state or your country or however you want to go, and then think about encompassing the world. And then you can expand outward to all the other beings in the universe if you believe there are such. But just play with it and really let that energy and that love go outward. But know that every time you draw your energy back in, every time you inhale, that you are able to draw from all that love and energy that exists in the world, however you're encompassing. And just play with that for a few minutes, and you can do this sort of broad encompassing thing. If you want to, you can also imagine that your energy, your love force field is going out to specific people that you love, specific people that you know need love and energy right now, that you know need loving kindness. And if you want to challenge your own loving kindness, you can send your love, your energy out to people who you might not normally love and enjoy, but who might really, really, really need that energy. People who are making big decisions for us, people who may or may not be doing things the way you want. Know that they need that love and that loving kindness too, in the hopes that maybe they will start to make good decisions for the world around us. So if you want to challenge yourself and send your love and energy out to particular people like that, you can do that too. But I'm just going to give us a few minutes so we can all explore and play with this in our own minds and in our own feeling, our own being. And then just take the next few breaths, and however far out you've sent your love and your energy, just start to slowly, we went out slowly, come back in slowly, slowly start drawing it more and more into yourself, knowing that whatever you've encompassed, all that love and energy that exists in the world, in those things that you've encompassed, you're drawing them back into yourself. Slowly bring it back in. And then if you're comfortable, you can bring your hands to touch at your heart. So just like we said, our Ahimsa, we want to show it to ourselves first. So take a moment before we open our eyes, before we finish this practice, and just thank yourself for coming, for learning today, for meditating, for maybe doing a little physical yoga. But thank yourself for coming to this yoga practice today. And I thank you all for being here with me as well. I honor the light within you and within all beings. Namaste. And I hope that people will join me again next week. We're going to be on Thursdays normally for this class. So Thursdays at 7:30, I had something come up last night and had to postpone. So I hope that you can join me for this Yamas course. It's going to be 5 weeks long. Next week we're going over the second aspect of the first limb of yoga. So stay tuned for that. And I know this is a kind of an unusual class. I love learning yoga philosophy and I love sharing yoga philosophy. So I hope that other people will feel the same. Also, if you're enjoying class and you feel so inclined, please donate if you can, because these are crazy times. If you can't, that's totally okay, because I know it's crazy times. But if you want to donate, you can Venmo me at Gin Yoga, or Cashapp is yogawithgin, or you can paypal.me/yogawithgin, or shoot me an email and we'll figure it out. All right. Love everyone. Oh, Nithya, I'm so glad you were here too. So cool. Carrie, I'm going to unmute you and say hi if that's okay. So Instagram going. Hi. It had Instagram going. Do you want to say hi on video? You won't. Only I'll see you though. Bye, Instagram folks.